Hello and welcome to the 3,500 Miles Between Us podcast with your hosts Jobie and Abigail.
Well, hello guys. Last time we spoke, we were just about to embark on the stories of Jobie's time in Venezuela when he was 16 and what an impact that made in his life. And tell us how that all kicked off for you, because 16 is, I've got 16-year-olds. That's incredibly young to go into the jungle. So we were raised in a family of, our parents were pastors of a small house church, and they would have many missionaries that would come through our home that we would host. And so we cut our teeth on hearing stories of them going into these tribes that they called in those days unreached people groups, is my memory of what we would call these people, and these missionaries would show up uninvited and impose our religion on natives who didn't ask for any of that, which is just such a weird concept now and is probably still going on. But presumably when you were young, there would have been a missionary family come through our home who were in Venezuela. Is that how you got exposure to the idea?
Yeah, well, because we were involved in, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more, but we were involved in all kinds of charismatic church movements in Cornwall, England. And charismatic, if you don't know religion and you don't understand it, so you've got all these different sects. You've got Methodist, Church of England, Roman Catholic, Anglican,
Brethren.
Yeah. Evangelical, and then you've got your charismatics, and the charismatics are the ones that have their hands in the air and like they just don't care, and they're falling over and speaking in tongues and doing all that. So we were, I think when missionaries came, we were just on the edge of kind of dipping into that world. But I'm just reminded of Downey. That's a whole nother tangent. We'll talk about that another time. But
Downey, as in where other people would spank other children. Like you would have other parents go up. If a kid was playing up in church, someone would just walk up and grab that kid, whether it was theirs or not, take it out back and start spanking them. And that was totally normal.
Well, no, sometimes it happened. Sometimes the parent would spank the kid in the pew in the middle of the service and not take them out, and everyone would clap.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Because it's like, spare the rod, spoil the child. Oh yeah, people would cheer.
Oh my God.
And when we went on play dates to friends' house, Mum would say, feel free, and I remember I said, feel free to spank him if he's naughty. So we'd get spanked by other people's mums. Which always felt outrageous. A bit dodgy to me. Like, I remember always feeling it was like borderline like
kink.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, you're looking at my bum.
That is weird, but that was the culture we were in. That was completely normal to give permission to another parent to spank your child, or for that other parent to take matters into their own hands, which happened, right? They would just grab the child and take it out back if they thought this child isn't behaving properly. They would usurp. Yeah.
And I get it. I mean, if you're in a cult, which I believe we were in lots of different cultish type of movements, it's you take these scriptures from the Bible and you just drill down on them, and
as literal.
Like, they just feel like they're doing the Lord's work, right? I mean, doing the quote unquote Lord's work sent people to get stoned to death, nailed to crosses. It's amazing the conviction that people have that will send them to their death. But so Mum and Dad,
the backdrop.
Mum and Dad were very excitable, probably like me, the same thing. They get something got in their head, and so they started a home church because none of the other churches were fitting the bill. And we used to have these folks from New Tribes Mission, which is one of the biggest evangelical missionary movements, I believe, in the world. And I don't know if they're still around. And we had friends. Remember the Platons, Luke and so the Platons went to New Tribes.
Oh my God!
For a year, and then they just came back to reality. They decided not to be missionaries, but this one they went for training in like Philippines or something like that. And so they would teach you, if you went to New Tribes Mission, you'd learn how to learn other people's languages, because a lot of the tribes they would go to were new tribes. They were tribes that had never seen white man. And so kind of the cool side of what they do is they would build an alphabet for their language, and they would build a language because these people, they would build like a written language. So that first they would have to learn how to learn their language, because I think in like, there's like, you walk a mile down the forest and there'll be a tribe that speaks a different dialect. So part of the training was like, how do we learn a language, and then how do we give them an alphabet and learn to write? And part of what I still agree with what they were doing was, unfortunately, I don't know if there's many tribes left like the one I saw, but gold miners would come and they would rape, pillage, and plunder these villages and take full advantage of them, because these people had no idea how to communicate. And so these communities are taken advantage of on the daily by these big corrupt companies. And so the missionaries, aside from them trying to get them to believe in Jesus, they were also trying to give them survival techniques, because the unfortunate truth is that the world was coming for them, and it's a bit utopian to think that they were going to live the way they were going to live forever, because the world's actually a pretty small place. Yeah, and I remember being out there. It was like there was a little like churchy school kind of hut, and all around the walls were mostly just like ABC, like the alphabet. Like a lot of what they were doing was training these and they weren't really taking their culture away either. They weren't teaching them to wear jeans. You got to wear blue jeans. Like they were kind of immersed in the natives' culture. So it wasn't all bad. But anyway, these people would come, and I guess they were recruiting, really. They would come to churches. They would share a bunch of slides, get everyone excited, and they would either ask for an offering of money. Seems like that clicking stopped. Ask for an offering of money, and they would also open up, like, once a year we have a summer camp where kids can come. You have to raise your own money to go, and it's a work camp. So you go out to whatever tribe. They had tribes all over the world, and you go work for a summer. And I remember as a kid, when we lived in Rehoboth, which was a 400-year-old converted private school, right? That's what Rehoboth was. Fucking spooky as hell.
Yeah, so our parents bought a school for yeah, definitely haunted. But it was they bought it for £4,000, this old boys' school, and that's basically where we spent a chunk of our childhood, was in this very old 400-year-old school. Just sounds kind of random, but that was that.
Yeah.
So we had missionaries passing through, promoting their mission, and that really ignited something for you then.
Yeah, so I remember it all started, the bug of being a missionary for me was ignited when it was the Logos and the Doulos. So there's these two ships that used to sail around the world. I don't know if they're still around, and they would have doctors and opticians, and someone came to our church that had served on air, and I guess as a young, the things that kind of are spikes when you're a kid, it's just so pure, right? Because it's like my son likes one sport but doesn't like another. It's pure. It's not like I forced him in any direction. And I just would kind of light up when I heard, because I think what I was really craving was adventure. when I look back on my life about how I used to play, like I'd always play Indiana Jones, and I mean, the imagination was so strong as kids because we didn't have bloody social media and phones. But I would always, when I was playing an internal like game out in the forest, I was being chased, like my leg was broken or something. It was always the odds were against me. So I just had this massive craving for adventure, and so missionary life just seemed so adventurous to me. And so I think I was like 14 or 13. I don't know how old we were in Rehoboth, that house. But I remember getting up every morning before anyone was awake. I would kneel down beside my bed and I would pray through a whole list of things. And then I would get dressed, and the sun hadn't even come up yet. I remember being really foggy and dark. I would get our dog Muffin and I would go for a walk. And I wouldn't just walk the dog, I would prayer walk. So I would...
At 13.
Oh, and maybe younger. Like, how old were we when we left Rehoboth? I don't remember. Because when we went to Venezuela, we were in Cape Penbos.
We were dedicated.
Yeah, and I would pray
exactly.
fervently, like, God, please send me to the mission field. Please send me to the mission field. I want to be a missionary. I want to be a missionary. And...
as if you had no choice in the matter. That's also amazing. It's like we didn't have this sense of sovereignty over ourselves. You know, we couldn't really do anything without him sending us, which is just such a funny...
Yeah.
Right, it was such a funny concept.
I think deep down it was like this craving for adventure. Maybe a craving to please God. I don't know what it was, but it seemed to me to be, and this has always been my experience while I was in religious settings, was like, to me, you know how when Jesus, he would be like, true religion is to take care of the widows and the orphans. Like, I never felt comfortable in church. I never liked listening to preaching. I didn't like theology. I didn't give a flying monkeys about all that stuff. To me, and I hadn't thought this through, but to me it was like helping someone build something is the way I see religion. It's like that's the way it translates in my head. And all of my stories in the religious have been kind of, that's where I've been always going towards. And so anyway, eventually an opportunity came for Venezuela, which was a New Tribes Mission initiative. And so I spent the whole summer raising money. I had other churches donate. I think mom saved a bit. So I can't remember how it all went, but yeah, mom and dad had to drive us to London, and then we met with a New Tribes person, got briefed. I think we went to their headquarters in London and met all these people, and everyone was really straight-laced and proper. There was young girls and some older people in their 50s and 60s. And they would just give us kind of a lowdown of what we're going into. And then we flew to Caracas, which is the capital of Venezuela. Right. And then that's where we started to realize what we were going in for. And so in Caracas, you get out of the plane and everyone's walking around with machine guns.
Whoa. Okay.
And it's like serious. Like, I'd never seen anything like it, and it was wild. And, we went to this compound, and the missionaries who lived with the tribe had flown out of their spot and came to kind of prep us for what we were going into. So New Tribes actually owned airplanes too. So they had all these little like 5 and 6 seater Cessnas, and they had pilots that worked for them full time and flew missionaries out to these tribes. And it's a big operation.
Big operation, yeah. It's impressive.
So
really.
I remember we were sitting in this room, and I had brought my knife, and I couldn't believe, I'd been led on the plane from England to Venezuela with a knife. Back in those days, it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, but what did you come home with? You came home with like 9-foot long javelins.
I had machete in my backpack, bows and arrows, and everyone was like, yeah, carry on. Nowadays, you'd be arrested and thrown in jail.
It's amazing.
Things have changed.
Yeah. And it's amazing that they did this operation without cell phones. You think, how the fuck did they pull this stuff off in those days? It's like, yeah, we'll see you in 6 months at this spot.
Yes.
will be there, and then everyone just shows up. So they come to prep you, and then you
they
fly
come to
back
prep
with
me, and
them
I was like,
into
they
the
could see a
jungle.
knife in my pocket, right? And he's like, I was so embarrassed. He's like, you can't take that. And I was like, I was the only guy that had a knife. And I thought, I was prepared. He's like, no, you have to leave that here. And I was like really embarrassed about being called out. And what it was, once you get to the smaller airport, that's gonna then it gets rougher and rougher, and people start like taking bribes, and you can't, yeah. And so anyway, we go through all of this kind of like, here's what you're going into. And then they cram us into a 5-seater Cessna. I was in the very, very back in the luggage compartment, and we take off from the last village before you hit rainforest. So it was a town. And we had went and bought our hammocks before, because we had to sleep in hammocks when we were there. And we were 6 hours in the air over solid rainforest. So there's no civilization whatsoever. You leave the Orinoco River where it ends, and then you just start heading into jungle, and it's just jungle for 6 hours.
No, that's phenomenal. I had no idea.
We would see every now and then, you would look down and you would see a tiny little roundhouse, which is where they live. And the pilot would say, those guys have never, one specifically, I remember you could see people walking around down there.
Wow.
And there's no recorded white man that's ever been to that little place. And cutting to midway through the story, we actually went in search of that tribe while I was there, which was pretty crazy. But yeah, so then we like 5 or 6 hours, I think, over solid rainforest, and then all of a sudden you see this strip cut out of the rainforest. It's a landing strip, and it's tiny, and it's got a hill in it. So it's not a flat strip; it's got a big hill in it. And we came around, and we had to try landing, I think, 4 or 5 times, because the airstrip was too short. And so part of our project there was to extend the landing, the airstrip. So we'd come down, wheels down, bouncing across all the grass, and then all of a sudden throttle up again, back up into the air. I mean, all the stuff that happened out of there, if we had had cell phones, our parents would have been losing their minds, but they were just, I can't believe that Mum just like kissed us on the head and said, bye. And yeah, and if I had died, they would have taken a month before they'd even found out. Because it's crazy.
Instead, they just said goodbye.
Yeah.
See you in a couple of months.
Well, I think yeah, exactly. Trust the Lord I think was what
amazing.
Our parents
the level
thoroughly
of trust.
And fully believed, right?
Yeah. Less anxiety as well in those days, really.
Yeah.
Probably just, okay, we trust the Lord, we'll take care of you. Which probably gave them a way easier time. Like, if you actually did trust God to take care of your children, how much less anxiety would you have if you actually believed that and it worked out for you? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going for a bike ride now. Well, if it's on God's plan for you to die, then I'll just have to embrace that. It was all in the plan.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So it took you three attempts to land.
Three attempts to land, and we get there, and they open the door of the plane, and the plane is surrounded by the Yanomami Indians, like naked with bows and arrows.
Wait a minute. The name of the tribe is Yanomami?
The name of the people is Yanomami. So you could go on, like, it's like an Amazon. That's what those people are called, the Yanomamis. But each tribe is different. Like, the dialect changes as you move around. And so we were surrounded by mostly men and kids, and they have bows and arrows. They were totally naked. The men would tie a piece of string around their foreskin, and then tie that around their waist so that when they ran, their wang wasn't flapping around.
How funny. And that was basically their clothing, was that. So you're surrounded by men and children. How many people were in this tribe?
I think if I remember, there's probably about 30.
Wow, it's tiny.
30 or 40. Yeah, and I mean, you could go,
so they were
an hour's walk through the bush, and there'd be another tribe of varying sizes. But I mean, they didn't live long, right? Like times are tough over there. What we quickly noticed is that the women, the childbearing age women, were never around.
Really?
They were always out working. So they were naked and they didn't have pockets. So for the pockets, they would have massive holes in their ears, and all of their like vegetation, like stuff that they needed for the day, would be
Wow.
stuffed into these holes in their
Like
ears.
what kind of things? Like their lunch?
Just like leaves and probably tobacco and like arrowheads and they all had really big pot bellies because I think that their hygiene was really crap. And so they often probably had infections. Their toes, like you had sand fleas over there, which I actually got one in my toe, and it took me years, maybe 6 or 7 years before it ever left my toe.
Wow.
But they burrow inside your toenail and then make eggs in there, and then they kind of rot your toenail out. So,
and it itches badly, doesn't it?
It's funny, like people have this idea of like, people that are living closer to the earth are healthier, but in actual fact, they're not.
Right.
Their teeth were all rotten because they never brush their teeth, and they chew tobacco all the time. Their bellies were all popping out.
So what was their life expectancy? Like what were they dying of? Random sicknesses?
Well, when they had the missionaries there, the missionaries actually had like medicine, and so they would try and help them. But I would think that if you didn't have that, if you broke your leg, I don't know if you're ever walking again, or if you get really sick or an infection, they did have their own remedies, but they're pretty rough. And also, if someone pisses you off, you kill them.
Yeah, no laws. Wild.
Yeah, like one of the guys there, someone stole his wife from another tribe. He just went over to that tribe, found the guy that stole him, and killed him, and brought her back. Another day for them.
And now they were quite violent. They were quite violent towards women, were they not?
No, it was just it was a misogynistic culture, which is like the women went out and worked, the men were very lazy, but their men hunted. So you never saw.
So what were the women doing for work?
I think I never quite figured that out because I never saw them working, but I think maybe they were just off in the bush getting baked. But they had their kids strapped to their backs, and then they would go out and work and try and get bananas and vegetation and just basically food.
And that was the women's job?
I think so. And then the men, I wish that I kind of interviewed it more and when you're 16 years old, you're not as inquisitive as when you're older. But the men would just lay around all day, smoking tobacco and talk and laughing and talking in their hammocks, and then they would go out and hunt when they felt like it. There's a couple things, like they lived in a roundhouse. So it was a massive roundhouse with a big open middle, so it's kind of like a Colosseum type, and they would live around the perimeter, and then in the center they would have their kind of like festivals, and I don't know, you just kind of walk from one little hut to the next, and they would all live in community in a way. The smell of smoke was on everything, and it was actually a really like pungent smell, and it was on everything when I came home. And I remember bringing some trinkets home, and it smelled like that, and is very distinct. It's like this.
I remember
burning,
that because you brought back so much paraphernalia. It was like a tobacco mix, was it not? Like of smoke and tobacco.
Yeah, I mean, there's just always fires going, so everything was blackened by it. Mum made me get rid of it because she thought it was cursed, which it could well have been.
There is. I mean, I would love to get onto that later, where there was this speculation about whether you were cursed by one of the shaman.
Yeah.
Because you had so many near fatal accidents
after that
in the years following, and that's always been a question mark, hasn't it? Were you cursed by a witch doctor, I think is what we called them then.
Yeah.
So a much smaller tribe than I was picturing, like 30 or 40 people, presumably, because if you think about how long that tribe had been there, it's quite amazing that it didn't grow. But do you think the fact that they died so young, it was actually quite difficult probably to grow bigger? it must have only been like a couple of families.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of inbreeding. I think the men have multiple wives. There's a lot of rape. You know, you didn't get this overwhelming sense of happiness. Well, I think some people have an idea that when they go to a third world country and to an untouched tribe that there's a lot of joy. And in actual fact, it's not the case. The older women were very strict, like you could tell they were under a lot of pressure. There wasn't much laughter. And one thing that was very evident was that we used to play with the kids, and they'd never have people play with them. You never see the parents. Like we live in a world now where we have podcasts and people say, well, if you don't play with your kids, they're going to grow up with all these issues and you have to, you know, even our parents never really played with us, but now it's a normal thing to see, you know, and I think it's a good thing, but we would play with the kids and the kids were like, what is this?
Right.
And the parents never felt the pressure to do that. So you very rarely saw people like laughing, smiling. So you'd think, okay, well, these guys live close to the earth. The missionaries weren't trying to change their culture and the way they lived at all, from what I saw.
So do you think the missionaries were quite respectful of their culture?
Yeah. They were helpful. They helped them with medical issues. They were helping them. Well, there's an adventure that happened with gold miners that came out, and we all thought we were going to die. So we'll talk about that. But had it not been from the missionaries teaching these people that there are people with ill intent that might come to your community, they would have just been completely taken advantage of. So I didn't come away from that feeling like the missionaries had ruined their life at all. I think that there was that I felt that they were integrated. They weren't judging them for the way they lived. Like they actually continued to live. They weren't wearing Western clothes.
So they were enhancing.
Mind you, I traded a pair.
Sorry. They were enhancing their life with medical, presumably like antibiotics and medical treatment, and giving them an alphabet and a written language to their
helping
dialect.
Mothers that couldn't produce milk and all these things, right? Like life was. You got this sense very quickly that life was tough. Like food was scarce. Like you think there's food everywhere, but you got to hunt the thing. You know, it's not easy. And if you want to find bananas, you've got to go way into the jungle. And this jungle is full of predators. There's like jaguars, there's tarantulas everywhere, piranhas in the water, crocodiles, alligators.
So you would swim with
so
piranhas,
the Orinoco River, which kind of makes its way down through. I've got to pee, Abby. Can you hold on 1 second? I don't know how to pause this.
Yeah.
I'll just make note of it. I'll be really quick. Oh, man. My teeth were floating.
So you're swimming in the Orinoco River with piranhas.
Yeah, so the Orinoco River winds down through Venezuela, and it's a brown river that's just from all of the dirt on the side of the mud banks. And it's full of piranhas, crocodiles, crazy huge python snakes, like killer snakes everywhere. Spiders everything there could kill you. But when you think about going there, you're like, oh my God, we're going to die. And when you're actually there, you just you realize very fast that the animals are more scared of you.
Right.
So they would definitely, if you were put into a pinch in a corner, they would kill you. But we never really, I'm sure there was people there, because some of the people that went were just hating it and they wanted to go home. I was in heaven.
Really?
Look, I was all in.
So what was it? Why, given the fact, it's interesting because it's the first time I've heard you say that they weren't especially happy people, and because your experience was so amazing, I always assumed that it was just this radiantly happy community. But your personal experience, what was it for you that was so amazing and euphoric and perfect for your as an experience for you when a lot of your team were not enjoying it?
Well, I think it's what I was talking about before. I was always wanting adventure, and this was the ultimate adventure. And it just felt like it ticked all the boxes. It was like we had to hunt at night for our food because otherwise we wouldn't eat. And we had to.
And what did you hunt?
We hunted what was called wild tapir, which is like a small cow. It's not that easy to hunt in the jungle at all. But, getting back to your question is like why I loved it so much is I think it was, I don't know. I mean, it was just so much adventure and so simple. And like, I didn't care. When I came home, I cried the whole way home and I did not want to leave. And most people were just like, can't wait to get back to a hot shower and back to the city and have a hamburger. And like nothing in me wanted to leave. I didn't miss anybody. I would have quite happily stayed out there because I started building relationship with the Yanomamis. And, what was your task when you wake up in the morning? Oh, we got to build a little bridge so that they can walk over and get to this new hunting ground. Oh, we got to extend the airstrip so the airplane doesn't crash. And then at night we're going to go hunting. I mean, that's just for me was like
perfect.
I'm pretty simple.
Yeah, as it turns out.
Yeah, I'm a simple man.
Well, I mean, you've had a complex life, and it's interesting to me when I look back and think about the fact that this made such an impression on you, and yet you've never gone back, which is strange because actually you could have saved up and been back there the next year. I want to get onto that in different episodes of why that didn't happen, because I feel like you left part of your heart there. And it's amazing that probably $2,000 and 24 hours, you could actually be back there. It's that accessible. Well, maybe. But do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, if I didn't have, like I listened to on Rogan's show, there's this one guy who's saving the Amazon single-handedly, and he's like adventurous life, but I don't think he has a wife and kids. So I think that life just becomes complicated and you just become entangled in it. And it's not as easy to just do what you want to do anymore. I mean, that itch was definitely scratched when I started working with First Nations people in Canada again. And then the homeless people in Toronto. But it was always, I was talking to friends in the hot tub the other day, and I was like, we're all these kind of artists, and we're trying to figure out kind of the pursuit of happiness. I think the whole human race is on that pursuit. Like what make us feel happy and satisfied? And I think what I figured out is that when you have your father's blessing, you will go much, much further. And many people, their earthly father, don't have I remember racing bikes and I stopped and I didn't know why I stopped doing it. And our dad never understood it. And I didn't quite understand what was going on inside, but looking back, I realized I was really frustrated because I wanted, when you see these movies where the king puts his hand on the subject's head and said, bless you, or I knight you or whatever. It's like this blessing. And I felt like as a man, I don't know if women feel like this, but I've been searching.
Yeah.
Like when I have my Heavenly Father's blessing, if I believe in a God now, I don't even know what I believe, but then I feel like it doesn't matter if that thing makes sense to people outside, but if I have that blessing, I'm good to go. And I feel like I've been searching. Part of me had been searching. I felt like I had that there. Like I was like, this is so clearly the right thing to be doing.
So you got the green light in a human sense that it was something that we all approved of within our community. That was like the highest thing that you could achieve, was being a missionary in our childhood. Like there was nothing greater. That was idolized, wasn't it? Just go.
But I think it was. Yeah, it was, but I think it was tangled up with that, and also I love just doing physical work,
Mm.
and I just don't thrive around multiple. I mean, I can handle balancing a lot of balls, but it doesn't make me feel happy inside. Like I feel overwhelmed, and it's just a lot.
Western life doesn't really suit you that well.
No, I think I was built for like the dark ages where it was like we were going to
You've been
war and it's like
misplaced.
black and white, there's all of this
Bring
like,
it on.
got to take your kids to camp and then you got to come home, or you got to have date night with your wife and then you got to do this and you got to do that and you got to do.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
It makes me go fucking mental. And you do it, but when I was I mean, I felt the same thing when I was playing music. I mean, I've seen pictures of me on stage and I'm just like pure happiness. Because for that 1 hour when you're on stage,
yeah,
everything else is gone. It's like the bills don't, nothing else. If you're actually locked into what you're doing as a musician, for 1 hour, whatever that time is there, nothing else exists. And it's like, it's just such a good feeling because all the entanglements just fall off.
Full integration.
Yeah, full integration.
Yeah, because everything that you refer to as being your moments of joy are fully integrated, fully present, very simplistic, and definitely set outside of normal society expectations and, all the kind of pressures that we consider to be normal. They don't suit you very well at all.
No.
And then Venezuela was really the first entry into that exposure of you're cut from a different cloth and you suit a very different type of way of life.
Weird.
I don't know what happened there.
Yes, you were saying Venezuela was my exposure into.
Well, that seemed to be the first foray into really a way of life that suits you better, and we'll get into that in other episodes, what happened after that, but that was your first exposure to really the simplicity of living a more primal existence that's outside of society.
And when you're young like that, you don't really have any other reference points. It's like the first time, and you don't understand. You don't have that kind of like bird's eye view of your life like we do now. We learn to kind of stand back and think, and you piece it together. Then you
weren't analyzing.
No,
you were just
I
accepting.
just remember I was really happy, and I was, and
and you did have two near-death experiences while you were there, did you not? One of them being at the water pump.
Yeah.
The water fountain.
The
well.
Yeah, so we had to pump water up to the house, to the little hut that we were living in, and this was like almost towards the end of our stay. So I'd built relationships with people and spent time in the roundhouse, and I don't know, like there was witch doctors all over the place, right? And I didn't my eyes weren't wide open to the dangers. And so I was socializing and in there, and even when no one else was, I was like down there hanging out in the roundhouse, and there's weapons all over the place, and these people don't have the same type of rules that we have in our world. So in retrospect, it could have been quite dangerous. And I remember there was a witch doctor hanging around, and the witch doctors might not have liked us being there. I don't know, but one of the things that happened, this wasn't a near-death experience, but one of the things that will happen. So there was a guy there, and he was, so I was cutting the grass for the airstrip. I figured out how to make this lawnmower tractor work. I put it all back together, and it worked. So I started to cut the airstrip, and it literally took days to cut the airstrip. It took about half an hour to get from one end to the other, and you only cut like 24 inches wide. It was like, and you're in the searing heat with bugs all over the place. I get to the end of the airstrip and this stench, like a rotting animal, unbelievable. I come back and I was talking to the guys, the missionaries, are like, what is that smell at the end of the airstrip? They, probably someone's died. And then they started to tell me the story of what happens when someone dies. Well, when someone dies, They wrap them in bamboo. They put them on a trestle in the forest for 3 or 4 days. And it's a time when the spirits leave their body and do all their thing. Then after that, you take them off the trestle and they put them in a big cauldron and they make a soup.
Wow.
And then everyone drinks that soup.
No.
And then the next...
So they were cannibals?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we hadn't discussed that.
We haven't discussed that. And then the next
mark against them. Reject.
Yeah, I draw the line at cannibals. Not going there. So yeah, then the next child that's born is named the name of the person that died, and so that's the tradition. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. Well, there was a guy that was probably in his early 20s there at Yanomami Indian. And a local, I don't even know if it's politically correct to say Indian these days, a local. And he had scars all over his face and he was blind in one eye. I mean, he looked like rough, but the scars are all healed. And I was like, well, what's his story? And so what happened is he got sick. He fell into a coma. They thought he was dead. They wrapped him in bamboo. They stuck him down the end of in the jungle.
Oh.
And he broke out of his coma in the middle of the night, at which point he was covered in insects.
Wow.
And all night he was screaming, and his mum knew that something was wrong, but everyone else said, no, that's the spirits leaving his body. So she wasn't allowed to go down there. In the morning, she couldn't handle it anymore. She went down there, and he was alive and unwrapped him. And talk about trauma, hey? Like...
Wow.
Imagine.
So what were the cuts from?
From animals eating him. He was being eaten alive, but his arms were strapped to his side, and he was rolled up like a sausage roll.
Mummified, like in a mummy. Yeah.
Yeah, and just crawling with bugs.
Wow. And so his eye got kind of eaten?
His eye is closed over, and he's got big scars all over his face and body.
And he's got to live with these people. Like, thanks, guys. Thanks. That's just great.
You just, like, nowadays, you'd be like, yeah, I'm leaving, and I'm going to have therapy. Like, no therapy, no nothing. It's just like life is tough, like, man, out there. It's like, we got it easy.
So back to the possibility that you might have been... Oh, so you were near the burial ground, and was that taboo?
I was near the burial ground. I don't know.
No,
it's weird. I don't really know. And so I was down pumping water days later, and I probably integrated with them more than any other person in the group that went. And there was probably 12 of us that went. And I was down pumping water, and I walked away, and one of the locals came and said, all shocked, like, "Where's Jobie? Where's Jobie?" And this massive, the trees out there are made out of hardwood, and they're humongous, came down and crushed the pump to pieces. And
you had literally been standing there.
Like a minute later, and it came down and crushed the pump right where it was.
Wow.
And I thought nothing of it, but since my trip to Venezuela, I've had a lot of almost fatal accidents, and some people say it might have been a curse.
And didn't you have an incident with a snake in the boat?
Oh, yeah. That was just stupidity. So we would go, if you go in the daytime, you look in the jungle and you don't see anything, but everything sees you. You just know that there's shit looking at you. And the tarantulas there, they're crazy. So if you see a tarantula, it will literally jump. They spring, they have like crazy legs, and they'll jump.
Wow.
And then they shoot out these little darts from their back, which to you and I would just make your skin itch, but to another animal, put them to sleep, and then they get eaten. So they've got these huge tarantulas the size of a full-grown man's hand. Crocodiles everywhere, piranhas. I never got a nibble, and we bathed in the Orinoco River all the time and swam in there all the time. I think if you had an open wound, they'd be on you.
You just got to keep moving. Yeah. So you had a snake come into your boat, did you not?
Well, we'd hunt at night for our meat because in the day you can't see anything. But at night we would strap these mining helmets on with big flashlights, and we would get in a dugout canoe and go upriver. So you go through the rapids, like a dugout's made out of wood so it can hit rocks and not get dented. And you would shine your light up into the trees and you would see thousands of ruby red eyes. And it's snakes. And
no. And this didn't terrify you?
It was pretty crazy to think that we were under these snakes in the day and we just didn't know they were there. But at night, you just saw them. And these things were probably, if you stretch one out, 15, 20 foot long.
Yeah.
Killer snakes.
Wow.
So we thought it'd be fun to shoot one.
Oh.
So we start shooting at it with all kinds of, 22s, rifles, shotguns. And we got this one and you could see it was starting to go. But we're in the dugout canoe in the river. So we're kind of like weaving because we're in the rapids and we're trying to catch this snake. I can't believe the missionary let us do this. So finally, like someone shot it, hit it, and it dropped from the tree into our boat. And there's probably 6 of us in the boat. And then the thing starts crawling towards us in the boat.
Wow.
So we're all at the back of the boat and it's getting really tippy. And in the Orinoco is full of crocodiles.
And everyone's okay with this?
Which I don't know at night if crocodiles get more feisty at night. And so we start beating this snake with an oar. I mean, it's a full-on deal. Like it's you die in a couple minutes.
Yeah, I've seen photos of it. Which reminds me, we're going to be uploading.
If I can find them.
We're uploading a lot of photos onto Instagram to coincide, with his Venezuela trip. And there is a photo of you holding up this snake, if I remember right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Maybe it's not 20 feet long, but that's my exaggeration.
I don't think you said 20.
So it starts crawling towards us and we're beating it with this oar. I'm surprised no one tried to shoot it and then put a hole in the boat.
It's like a bad movie. It's like a Pineapple Express type moment.
Yeah, you just like, if we had GoPros and cameras, like none of that stuff made it back, right? Because it was just before the days of all that technology. Ooh. And so we finally thought we killed it and we put it to the front of the boat. We carried on hunting. And you just see eyes everywhere. They'd have these massive frogs that were like the size of a small chicken.
Wow.
And
bullfrogs.
Yeah, but it's hard to find the animals. It's really hard. The natives would shoot with these bows and arrows, and their arrows were longer than their bows, like these huge, long, dangly arrows, and they were super accurate with them. So anyway, we came back. Yeah, so we came back down the river. I grabbed this snake on an oar, like or stick, and I brought it up to the house, and we laid it with a big frog that we killed in the porch, and then went to bed. And in the morning, the snake had moved about 10 feet towards that frog. So it was still alive. We thought it was dead. And one of the locals, the Yanomamis, came up and saw what we had done, and he was pissed. And he was angry, and he got a machete, and he chopped the head off, and he buried it 10 feet from the body of the snake. And he was like, you guys are reckless like that. He showed us the venom inside its cheek, and he said that would kill you in like 10 minutes. You'd be over. What do you guys?
Wow. Do you know what type of snake that was?
No, they'd have these black and white snakes too. They were like striped black and white snakes, and they weren't good either.
Aren't those water snakes?
I don't know.
I think they're water snakes.
But yeah, that wasn't the smartest thing.
And didn't they stun? You brought back a lot of hummingbird skins, or did they? Somehow they stunned hummingbirds to kill them and use them in their.
Well, the kids didn't have toys, so what they would. It was funny. One day we were walking, and there was a kind of like a bottle fly, like a big fly, flew past me at my eye height, and then I noticed had a little bit of thread caught to it. So the kids would figure out how to catch these flies, and they would manage to tie the tiniest bit of thread around its waist. And the fly had that amount of weight allowed the fly not to get much altitude. And so that was their little drone toy.
Right. Oh, wow.
And so they could just grab it at any time and pull it back, and then the fly would try and fly away, and it wouldn't get much altitude. And these things, how did you tie something around that thing?
Wow.
And then they
And
would
these
blow
were just
dart.
regular flies?
Yeah, just regular
Or were
flies.
they could catch a fly and tie something round its stomach
Like not
and
the
then
like the
pull
big
on
ones
it.
like a horsefly, like something like that kind of size.
Yeah.
And then they would get
And so how did they catch hummingbirds?
with blow darts. The most
And
incredible feathers, like beautiful, like you can believe.
I remember those because you brought back a ton.
Hmm.
So they stunned them and then they would just die soon after.
I guess so. And then they would skin them and make these incredible plumes of feathers. And this, I can almost smell the smell now. It's incredible.
I remember it because when you came back, it was intoxicating because you came back with so much stuff.
I know. I traded a pair of red underwear because back then men used to wear like Speedo underwear, and they love the color red. And there was this main hunter. His name was, I think the Western name for him was Sanchez or something like that. And I traded for one pair of red underwear. I traded a bow and like 6 or 7 arrows, like all handmade with like feathers and monkey. They'd use a shoulder bone of a monkey for the arrowhead, all hand carved, like gorgeous. And he was pleased as punch. I've got a picture with him wearing my underwear.
We'll upload all of this because I remember those photos.
Yeah.
And you came through customs just loaded with spears and
it's spears, arrows,
a machete, and
these arrows were like, I had them for a long time. I don't know where they've gone. It's really sad, but they were probably 8 feet long, huge.
Yeah, I remember, huge. Yeah. So that was just an incredibly powerful experience that young in life, that it feels like it's stuck with you in a very like they say visceral, like that, the vivid memory that you carried from that really quite a young age has left a massive impression on your life.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many more stories that happened out there too, which we can maybe talk about, like going in search of that tribe that we saw from the air and all of that. But yeah, I think I remember crying most of the way home and then telling my parents, how was it? I'm like, I want to go back. And my dad just laughed in his mocking laugh. And I remember being absolutely gutted. And I do remember making like this inner promise that right then and there, I was like, because I really felt exposed and vulnerable. And I remember saying, I'll never, this is a side issue probably.
No.
I was like, I'm just going to internalize this. I'm not going to talk about this because no one gets it.
So you kind of felt like you were vulnerable with mum and dad about how much it impacted you, and it was kind of met with mocking.
It's a mocking laugh, like,
yeah.
And because I was like, I immediately, when they picked me up, I said, I want to save up enough to go back.
Yeah.
And I remember it's again, not having that blessing. I almost closed my heart down. I remember driving back from London, which is like a 4-hour drive. And I was like survival. I was like, I'm not going to talk about this. I'm not going to talk about how much it meant to me because no one will understand.
Whereas if his response had been, we'll help you get back out there, let's do this. Yeah. And if he had been cheering you on, what a difference. You probably would have gone back out.
Yeah, and I think it's that very British, like don't tell me you're going to be better than the next guy. Like in America, it's applauded when you want to do something entrepreneurial. But in England, it's like this sarcasm and this like, it's like, oh yeah. So you think it's this romantic movie star you're going to go and live with. And actually it was...
Don't get any big ideas.
Don't get any big... You're going to work at the corner store just like your granny. That's what you're going to do. Don't tell me you're going to be a fucking missionary. Yeah.
Shut it.
Don't give me any of those dreams.
I think that's why none of that shit coming from you and that lip of yours. And I think that's why...
Daddy, I want to be an Olympic runner.
Just shut it, boy.
You'll never run, boy.
Both of us...
You're stupid. You're fat.
You'll never amount to anything. I think that's why both of us had to get out of England and knew it from such a young age, is that I mean, we should close up this session because I've got to get going, but to leave it on, I feel like...
So there you go. That was part 1 of 2 chapters, 2 episodes on my Venezuela adventures. It's been pretty cool, like digging up the past and also realizing how much Abigail didn't know about the story. And so yeah, really enjoyed this process, and I'm looking forward to talking more. And eventually we will move on to Abigail's life and start to unpack her life, and then where our lives kind of merge, and just kind of share our stories. I think it's important we share our stories. One thing I've realized having children is that there's a world going on in my head, and I think that they know all about me because I've got this conversation going on in my head. But when I actually, relax and start to talk about my life, they're really attentive, and a lot of the things I think they know, they don't know, because I don't know, I'm a bit, maybe, I don't know if it's introverted, but it's just all up in my head. And I think storytelling is an art that's kind of been lost a little bit. And just this process of talking with Abigail, after this podcast, we both connected, and it was just like a real pleasure to kind of unpack and unlock these stories and get them down on paper, as it were. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up, and please subscribe to our channel. We'll look forward to seeing you next time while we continue on the story and see where it leads. Take care.